Brooklyn's the only interstate is doomed.
Most
why
fraught,
is that?
complicated, and long-running infrastructure problem in the United States is not what you'd expect. It's not a failing dam or an aging bridge. It's just this damn road. This is the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway in New York City. It is, at this very moment, in the process of literally falling apart, inching closer and closer towards catastrophic collapse, and there's nothing we can do about it. Why? Well, buckle up. Literally buckle up. If you ever go on this expressway, you better hope you're wearing a seatbelt. First, a little background.
Buckle up.
The road we're talking about, the BQE, is a section of Interstate 278 that runs from here, the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, to here, the Grand Central Parkway in Queens. This relatively
Battery
short stretch of
Tunnel.
expressway is arguably one of the most important freight corridors in the world, bringing 13,000 trucks to and from New York City's two most populous boroughs every single day. It's also terrible. It's constantly congested, it's loud, it's arguably
Abbreviation.
very ugly, and much like me when you call me congested, loud, and ugly, it's also about to snap and kill someone. For the last decade, the BQE has been rapidly deteriorating, and within the next decade, it's expected to collapse, in some way or another at least. The problem area specifically is right here, the section of the BQE running through Brooklyn Heights. When the expressway was being built in the 1940s, the residents of Brooklyn Heights weren't too thrilled about a 6-lane highway cutting straight through the middle of their neighborhood, so Robert Moses, the guy responsible for this and a whole bunch of other bad ideas,
Moses.
did some quick maths and came back to them with a different proposal. What about a 3-lane highway twice? This compromise, which split the highway in half by stacking 3 lanes on top of the others, was a huge hit. It created the famous Brooklyn Heights Promenade and shrunk an otherwise chunky expressway into a relatively compact and pretty package. The problem, as we would later all find out, was that this structure wasn't designed to stand the test of time. The triple cantilever, as it is affectionately known, is falling apart for a few different reasons. And weirdly enough, the primary reason is salt. This expressway needs to be salted every time there's a risk of snow or ice.
Salted,
And while
wow.
that does succeed at making it more delicious, it also poses a risk. The structure holding up each road is made of steel rebar encased in concrete, and over time, cracks in the asphalt above have allowed the road salt to seep into the structure and make contact with the steel. That is bad news, because salt can pretty quickly corrode steel, and corroded steel can pretty quickly stop holding up the BQE. The other problem is that, for various reasons, the BQE is now responsible for holding up a lot more weight than it was designed for. The expressway was built to carry about 47,000 vehicles a day, less than a third of the 150,000 it currently carries, and that's not to mention the fact that the vehicles in general are a lot heavier than they were in the 1940s. This is what a big rig looked like in the 40s, carrying at most 20 tons of cargo,
20
and
tons.
this is what they look like now. These hefty boys can legally carry double that, and as long as you're not worried about the legally part, they can carry a whole lot more. Given how time-consuming and expensive it can be to get cargo into the greatest city in the world, baby, it's become pretty commonplace for shipping companies to illegally stuff their trucks way beyond federal weight limits and send them careening down the BQE in a manner so reckless that even Robert Moses is cringing in hell. So now the question is, why can't we fix this? Why do we have a giant perilous slab of concrete dangling over one of the densest cities in the world? And why are we doing anything about it? Well, it's complicated. The city has
My name is Matthew Murdoch.
Oh,
There's no further comment at this stage.
shit.
done a few things to buy itself some time. The 3-lane highway has been cut down to just 2, reducing the strain on the cantilevers, and more recently, they installed a system to actively weigh trucks as they travel along the highway, so when it inevitably breaks, we'll at least know who broke it. These solutions, however, are kind of like putting a band-aid on your arm that has already fallen off. The BQE needs to be fixed or replaced, and pulling off such a complicated construction project in such a dense and frankly whiny area is pretty much impossible. Just as an illustration, let me break down everything the city has tried and why none of them have worked. Plan A.
Plan A.
Reroute the BQE.
Reroute
One of the city's
BQE.
first proposed solutions in 2018 was to shut the triple cantilever down for 6 years and replace the entire thing. In the meantime, they would reroute traffic up onto the promenade, which would become a temporary highway until the triple cantilever was fixed. The problem with this is that the only way the BQE was allowed to be built in the first place was by compromising with the Brooklyn Heights residents by giving them a cute little promenade, and they're still not willing to change the terms of the deal, even if it means the highway is going to fall on them. That brings us to Plan B. Fix it piece by piece. This is the other solution that was proposed in 2018, which involves not rerouting the highway, and instead temporarily closing down small sections of it as they're repaired. This, however, would make an already congested highway even more congested, and was expected to last 8 to 20 years, which would essentially hamstring all of Brooklyn for decades. So, Plan C, bury the damn thing. There have been a number of different proposed plans to turn the BQE into a tunnel, and why not? As long as you can't see it, then you don't need to worry about it. There are, however, a few different ways to approach a tunnel, and not to spoil the ending here, but none of them work. One proposal was what is called a capped highway. In this plan, you would move the 6-lane expressway down to what is now Furnham Street, and then bury the whole thing under a brand new park. And this graphic does look pretty appealing. I mean, you could fit like 6 Shake Shacks up there. But the problem, or I should say problems, are that there's a massive sewer system right here. This whole thing would end up burying several MTA substations, and existing apartment buildings along the park would have to move their lobbies up to the 3rd floor and just get rid of the first 2 floors. So that doesn't work. The other option is to actually bury it by just digging a tunnel underneath Brooklyn and sending the cars down there. But this tunnel would cost $11 billion and would make it nearly impossible for the BQE to connect to the Brooklyn Bridge and Manhattan Bridge, which is like one of the main reasons it exists. So finally, that brings us to Plan D, get rid of it. Unfortunately, you can't get rid of it. Despite all these headaches, the BQE is still pretty darn important. It is still, essentially, the only way for trucks to reach Brooklyn from the western United States and the primary connection between New York's 2 most populous boroughs. So it's a bit of a pickle. The most recent plan proposed by the city, and the one they're currently pursuing, is to just do Plan A anyway, and then when people ask how they're going to deal with rerouting traffic, just be like, I don't know. But even as brilliant as ignoring everyone in Brooklyn Heights might seem, this plan is also not guaranteed to prevent disaster. The expressway is expected to become unsafe for trucks by 2026, and this project, if approved, will only start construction with -3 years until that happens. But as soon as they get that time machine up and running, the BQE will finally be saved. Now, if you've watched this video up until this point, I can only assume that you're the kind of person who enjoys learning new things. I mean, you just watched a 7-minute video about a road that sucks. Unless you're being held at gunpoint, I know you like learning new things. And that's why I think you'd love our sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is my go-to resource for learning any new math or science concept that I want to get my brain around. They have thousands of lessons on everything from data science to calculus to programming in Python. Right now, I'm working my way through their course on large language models, and I love how intuitive and interactive each lesson is. I never have to read big chunks of text or study some problem over and over again. Everything is simple and fun, and best of all, I can learn for just a few minutes at a time. I'll do a lesson on the bus or when I'm doing my laundry, and then I can easily just pick up from where I was the next time I have a few spare minutes. It's the perfect way to get a little bit smarter every day, and if that sounds like a goal of yours, I can't recommend Brilliant enough. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/HI or click on the link in the description. Better yet, you'll get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription, and you'll be supporting this channel too.
Sunlight is a powerful thing. Pets know, and so does Purina. That's why 100% of Purina's power comes from solar and wind.